I like to not care about those boundaries between those disciplines because, for instance, if we take quantum physics, there's no difference between that, I would say, spirituality or art in a way that when you're a theoretical physicist, you're thinking about what you cannot see, so you have to imagine. Mm-hmm. So to me, it's a form of art, and it all relates to the same thing. As an artist, I'm really thinking what I can do. I can be just in tune with the world around me and really use that intuition to draw something that can reach or go towards some form of truth, even if this truth is always going to change, transform.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another season of the Blue Hour podcast, where we explore the minds and the worlds of visionary artists and creators. In this new season, I've enhanced the concept and pushed it a little bit further. So as the Blue Hour is the blend of the night and the day, the conscious and the subconscious, we're going to have two parts for every episode. So I'm going to spend the first part of the podcast talking about the person's career, their vision, basically with their art, with their creation. And this is what you're going to see today. And the second week after the full and new moon, we're going to have with the same artist a more lunar part, which explores the more subjective, emotional, intuitive aspects of the artists or the creators. And in this way, we can have another vision of these people and what they're about that you might not have seen anywhere else. So in this week, we have the artists Kimberly and Marie-Danielle, who are artists from Montreal that I met in New York in an artist residency. And I was fascinated with their approach to art, which is a kind of taking it from their past lineages, transforming them alchemically through their selves and through their art, offering a new perspective to what was long forgotten by their ancestors and everything that has happened to their lineage. So I thought it's a visionary aspect in a kind of necessary going back to the roots that I think is worth exploring, and we had a very interesting conversation that you're going to see in a few moments. And on another note, if you're seeing this now, I'm filming this a bit earlier, but the Visionary Rose gift is now online, so you can go check it out on the website. I'll link it below. So Roze Umbra is offering money. We have an art residency in Spain that's offered, and a few other prizes for the first, second, and third winners. So you can apply on the website. There's a few questions. You apply with a project, and you can see all the details there. And there's a jury of 6 visionary artists that will be evaluating all the submissions. It's free to apply. If you want to support the channel, there's also these Roze Umbra hoodies, very high quality, loose, one size hoodies that I wear almost every day because they're just very comfortable and easy to just wear when you're working in the workshop, or if you're just want to lounge or even to go out. They're like stylish, they're loose fit, drop shoulders. So if you want to help the podcast grow and you want to support the vision, I'll put the link to go purchase one of those hoodies. Limited quantities, there's just a few left of every color. There's 2 colors. So I think I've covered everything. So I hope you enjoy this episode, and don't forget, next week we have 2 parts because we have 2 guests. So you're gonna see on the same channel the lunar part with Kimberly and Marie-Danielle. So let's jump right in, and thanks for watching, guys. Welcome to the Blue Hour podcast. We are in your studio right now, Marie-Danielle and Kimberly. Thanks for joining us also for this episode.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
So to put you in context, we have one mic because one didn't work, but we're going to make it work. So we just came back from New York. We had a residency together. And so we had the time and chance to talk about your practice. And I think it was like when I asked you to come on the podcast, there's a lot of spiritual themes and inner transformation and stuff through art. Mm-hmm. But I think what I was interested in, I shared a little bit with you guys. I think your work is visionary, but not in the typical sense that we think of visionary art. I think from my observation of the art world, a big theme and trend is kind of like healing the kind of the lineages, the collective trauma that our ancestors have been through. And I think from my perspective, if you want to go in the future and you have like a big weight in the past, it's very hard. And a lot of artists I've noticed, and your work is especially strong for that, is a way to kind of reinvent the past to start healing it, so that you can move forward with some new insights and new energy. So maybe if you want to start by describing your practice, like briefly about how this connects to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So I would say my practice is really about storytelling, and it relates to what you're saying in the sense that, to me, I'm really interested in bringing to the center stories that have been sidelines from the traditional narratives, to really see how I can bring them just in another way and make sure that they're not forgotten. So to me, it's about honoring my ancestors, but also honoring people that deserve their stories told, and just give them this opportunity.
So do you work in direct link with, your ancestors, asking them about their stories, or do you go more in the even ancient mythologies? And
well, I would say it's a bit of both. I really have a nonlinear approach. So to me, it doesn't something can be, I can draw from mythology, but I can take those mythologies and make reflections about science fiction stories and like contemporary reflections. So to me, there's not really a separation. I really see it in terms of cycles, and thinking about my ancestors, how I can honor them. To me, it's also thinking about what I'm gonna leave for the next generation. So I draw from a lot of different mythologies also. Like, I'm from Senegal, but I grew up in Chicoutimi, Quebec. So I absorbed a lot of different influences, cultural influences, historical influences. And to me, it's also making sure I'm aware of them. I'm not separating or like drawing from things without being conscious of it. So to me, it's really about, just being conscious of what I'm telling and what influences me, and how I can enter in conversations with other people with that.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead, Kimberly, and then I can follow up.
Yeah, for me, it's very, very similar as well as Marie-Danielle, but I think for me, it all started when I saw, through my personal experience and also through just researched, a huge gap in history that there was with information about pre-Columbian indigenous groups in Colombia. I went 19 years without even knowing that I had indigenous ancestry, and it wasn't until I took a class at CEGEP, and it was a class about indigenous people, and there was a reflection that was happening in the class, and then that's when the question sparked, do I also have indigenous ancestry, considering the history in Colombia? And what's really interesting also is I immigrated with my family when I was 1, so a baby, and I grew up here in Montreal, in the suburbs of Montreal, and it took me to be completely far away from my country and my roots in order to go back to an ancestry that maybe I wouldn't have really thought of if I had grown over there. And I feel like this is something that I've been noticing with artists that are especially immigrated in North America. These are questions that are really coming forward for us. And so it really started with that. And also it's much bigger. My story, my perspective is much bigger than just me. It's literally a product of colonization. It's a product of the patriarchy. It's way bigger than just like my own journey with like gaining back the lineage or just connecting back with the indigenous ancestry lineage that I have. So yeah, it's a way for me to honor that, but also to put in questions and to make people reflect a little bit and ask the bigger questions on, you know, what we're taught, the systems that we are just born into and what we assume and all of that. So,
and what do you think the power of art is in your experience, since you've been delving into the past, bringing and really kind of intertwining it with the present? How that has this art, the act of creation, how that has this impacted you personally?
I think what's cool about being an artist, let's just say it like that, is that I feel like when it comes to information, and the West, it's like the Western way of information, validating information has to do a lot with like facts, researching, you know, knowing exactly what happened in history, the scientific products and everything. But in reality, we ourselves hold so much memories. And so we actually do have a lot of information that's available to us if we just tap into it. You know, we tap into, and the way that you do that is through meditation, it's through being in the flow and creativity. So as artists, we don't have this weight necessarily of, you know, necessarily like scientists or art historians to have every single detail and every single possible theory out. You know, we still have to do research because, you know, it doesn't come from nothing, but we still have the freedom to kind of take that research and then turn it into something creative, and then have, I think, maybe sometimes the same or even more impact than researches that we find. Like, yeah.
It feels also like the biggest discovery in the scientific world are like creative people that have a strong imagination, that can like use their abstract thinking to connect things together that like no other humans had like connected yet. And I think the reverse is also true for artists. When you're like more into the subjective, you're in the creative, abstract, imaginatory world, but you also have this kind of the rational also that comes to like reinforce it. Like, right, you're talking about specific things. It's not just fantasy. Like, there's actual like research about the history that's done, even though it doesn't have to be hyper precise. I think actually it becomes even more precise because you're, like you're saying, you're not bound to like the facts of the exact time and date, but you can actually feel into your own genes and DNA to like see how you can reinterpret it. And I don't know, Marie-Danielle, if you can share your own perspective on that as well.
Yes, and that really relates the way I'm thinking, because you know, like if we're talking about different disciplines, to me, I like to not care about those boundaries between those disciplines, because for instance, if we take quantum physics, it's really, there's no difference between that and I would say spirituality or art, in a way that when you're a physicist, like theoretical physicist, I mean, you're thinking about what you cannot see, so you have to imagine. So to me, it's a form of art, and it all relates to the same thing. So as an artist, I'm really thinking in what I can do. I can be just in tune with the world around me, and really use that intuition to draw something that can reach or go towards some form of truth, even if this truth is always going to change, transform. It's always like looking.
And it feels like this truth is, you know, if it's truthful, like the ultimate test becomes like, how do people react to it, you know?
Absolutely.
Like, are people actually like connecting to it? And this opens up a dialogue in their inner world that they do the same work. Like, maybe sometimes it's, I feel like with art, it's people see your art and are touched by it, and it's not even like rational, okay, I'm going to go do studies about everything, but more like they start thinking about it, they start dreaming about it, and this kind of unlocks something within them, and it opens kind of a collective dream to be able to access these ancient truths that have been suppressed, and like that need to be resolved in the collective unconsciousness almost.
Absolutely. And when you try to be in tune with yourself, your inner world, and the outer world, you start to see that there's this connectiveness, and if something feels true, it feels like a good intuition, and you feel like it's something to pursue, for sure it's gonna connect with other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because we're all part of the same.
And maybe Kim, you can start. I have a question about like how do you feel into this? Because again, it's so abstract, and you have to be very sensitive, and not just sensitive, but also very confident, because a lot of people have these intuitions, but often it's like they doubt it. So they're like, okay, I'm not going to pursue this idea because I'm not sure if it's true or if I'm imagining it. How is it for you to, collect the data from your inner world, informed by your outer world, and how do you arrive to a place where you're like confident in creating art about it?
Well, I think at the beginning I did have a bit of imposter syndrome when it came to that, and that's like a way that I dealt with it at first had to do with research. I did a lot of research. I would take more time than I did and than other students in university, and like really dwelled into the subjects, because these are subjects, like I said, it's kind of an erased history in a way. These are subjects that not a lot of people know, and that I would have to be the one that like knows about it and explains it in order to be able to explain my art. But I think like as when I got out of school, I felt like I kind of broke a little bit free from that, like being the one that had to know everything, which I guess like it did help me a lot, because now I know a lot more about my subjects. But now it's like I just do the work that I'm called for, and I'm not really focusing on how it's going to resonate with other people. I'm not thinking about how it's going to validate. Like, I don't know. It's just I've entered a space that like if I like, as long as I like it, then that's enough, because because my art practice is not just me, like I've spoken about this before, and it doesn't feel like I'm alone when I create. It really feels like a team. It feels like downloads that I'm getting, and so it's just trusting it. And I trust it, and I make peace, and it goes out there, and then I see the response. I see the way that it's that people are digesting it and everything. And like after a certain amount of times that I see that I guess it's like in a form, like it's showing me that like my work is in alignment with what I should be doing, then that imposter syndrome just fades away, because I have something to say with my work, and I know it's meaningful.
It seems relevant to discuss that, because what it seems like you're describing, and tell me if I'm wrong, is like having a deep connection that's not just physical, that's like emotional and spiritual almost to your subject and to the information that comes to you. Because I can relate with my own practice, where like I don't care anymore. Like I'm creating for myself, but like you, it seems like it's something bigger than myself. I'm just kind of a vessel for it. And therefore, if people can't read it or not, like I still think that this type of art, visionary art, should have a big place. Almost like when in the world of the abstract thoughts, the intellect, it comes through us until it's materialized in the world. It's still in the dream world. It's not real, like for people, for the collective. And it feels to me like as soon as you birthed it into the physical world, regardless if people see it or not, it still exists within something more real, more tangible, and will have its effect, which is very abstract concept, because I think you have to have a deep connection with the unconscious to understand how this works. But I do feel that. What do you think about like how you connect with these? Do you, because you guys are friends, do you work in a similar way with the imageries that you come up with? Maybe you can start, Marie-Danielle.
I think we have definitely similarities in our processes, but I cannot speak for Kim. For me, I would say it's really, it relates though in the fact that it's beyond analysis. So we do a lot of research, but then we can step back from that and really tune into our own ourselves and really think about how we can let go those all those analysis and all this knowledge we think we gathered, and how we can channel it in a more spontaneous way and in a different level of consciousness, because art is not about analyzing and thinking everything. It's really about a collaboration with the world and with your medium. So to me, it's it starts with those researches and those things that I think are really important. But then the things I start to draw from those stories or those knowledges, it's really intuitive. And sometimes it's not about like what is more promising or what is we feel like is the most interesting, but it's really just listening to what we're drawn to, and it's usually the right thing to go towards.
So you have like a feeling of this is it, and you've learned to not doubt it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm curious about the pieces, and I'll put them in the video montage, but the one that emerged from the sand, how did you come up with this vision or this kind of idea? Where does it come from?
Well, that's a complicated question because, our creations are always a constellation of different things. So I started being interested in the fictional stories. I read a lot of books between in the stories of mermaids or sea spirits. And I'm from Senegal, which is a coastal country, and I also, as I said, grew up in Saguenay. There are a lot of rivers, beaches there, and those places have always been sanctuaries for me. So I think it's part of why I'm drawn to those mermaid stories. And also it brings us back, of course, to this, this state of just being in the womb. So I definitely think the water is something soothing for everyone. It's intrinsically soothing for us. And so I was just thinking, making those sculptures in the sand, it's really a direct just moment with yourself and with the earth. And as I was working on those mermaid sculptures made in the sand, I lost my grandmother in Senegal, and it did feel like since she was the last grandparent and we wouldn't have the house there anymore, which was the place where everyone gathered. It felt like something really important was going to go away, and I kind of wanted to think about it and think about the memory of the sand and how it can channel an energy for me as an artist. And what's important, it's not literally the energy that is in the matter, but it's really what I associate it with and how it can channel a certain energy that really allows me to share something very meaningful and get out of something that is really going to connect with the world and the people I care about. So it was when I saw them the first time, because they have a sand texture and they're placed on sand anyways, the show you have at the Fonderie. And it really makes me think, I remember you have the Pisces rising, so you have this kind of a ocean theme in your personality. The archetype of that is basically the collective unconsciousness, which is how everything emerges from nothing. And I see kind of that in that piece, kind of like the sand, the primordial sand, or the primordial Pangaea, the original land from which, and they've been found to all come from Africa.
that emerges, like the nothing emerges, the something emerges from nothing. And I see these mythical creatures almost like metaphorically, like as if like you're dreaming, and then the dream gets kind of slowly, like a hologram starts to get formed into reality. I see these mythical features like kind of doing that, which I think is beautiful, and it connects, like I think in a certain way, our three practices seem to have this theme of, coming from within, because some art, sometimes it's more like technological, it's more about outer things. Maybe Kim, you can talk about your art, how you come up with these very intricate sculptures that they look so familiar but new at the same time.
Yeah, a lot of people always say that, and it's like, oh, like it's like old but new at the same time. Well, I'm someone that spends a lot of time in my inner world. Like I dedicate every morning to journaling, to gratitude journaling, and really just exploring my emotions. It's been a way for me to be able to heal myself from many things and also understand me, and at the same time understanding the world around me as well. I feel like because my work comes from me, I'm like the best subject to explore and investigate, and that then transcends to allowing me to just receive downloads, clarity, and just signs of things that I should be addressing and creating. And when it comes to like physically creating, sculpting these things, I think at one point I just kind of realized that I could make something cool if I wanted. I could really, like, I don't have to limit myself in my head so much on what I can create physically. I can create it if I feel like it. So it's always a little blurry at first, and I just sketch it. I'm not the best drawer. I'm a better sculptor than drawer. So I sketch in the way that I think it's gonna look, and then it always ends up looking better and just coming out, manifesting better than I even thought in my head, once I start manually creating these pieces.
So it seems to materialize through the physical hands, like actually with the clay, and that's how you give it its final form.
Yeah, exactly.
You get, you're not definitely you're not like very pointy about taking your drawing and making it exactly the same.
No.
Kind of let it be its own thing as you make it.
Yeah. I mean, I do reference a lot, pre-Columbian ceramics. I look at the books that I've acquired a lot, and I do think about it, because it's not from scratch, in a way. I have my references, and I'm also very fascinated with these ceramics. It's a huge passion, and I love learning about them and learning more and more about it. So, and the designs are so strong, and it's always so incredible for me to think about how strong these designs are, and how the people that created that back then were getting inspired by nature, by their subconscious. And also, what's even more interesting about this is that a lot of the messages of these ancient ceramics reflect what quantum physics talks about, reflects about like what science talks about now. And so it's like this wisdom, it's just like a proof that this wisdom, we've always had it. It's just that humans were forgetful. If we think about, if I ask you, what did you do 1 year ago exactly at this time, not a lot of people can answer that. We're forgetful, but there's ways to remember the important things.
And I think this touches upon like one of the reasons I was so excited to have you both at the same time to talk about these subjects, because it feels like often, like if you think about generational healing, it could be just a way to remove the suffering that most people have on the day-to-day, whether like overthinking about something that is connected to a generational trauma very deep down. But in this way, it's also more than that. It seems like it's, as a visionary, like it is a way to use the data of the old that was already very potent and very useful for humanity, and bring it back to light, reconnect the connection between this generation and the ancient generations by healing where it was severed, the link was severed, so that you can draw this old wisdom that is very valuable and important for us to understand how to create the future. That's how I see it, like the future, which is never like just a product of something completely new, but that can be even more empowered if we have access to those clues that were left to us a long time ago.
Absolutely. And I think it's why, as I said previously, like I like to merge mythology with science fiction. And you were just talking about quantum physics, and we both work with different earth materials. Like I use the sand, and you work with clay. And most people see it as something inert, something that has no energy. But the truth is, like, even if for people that are really attached to science and who want to reject those like this ancestry and all this knowledge that was already there, like if you go like smaller than an atom, there's actually a lot of energy in the sand, like the same, like as much energy as there is like in everyone. So just denying that and forgetting that, I think it's kind of the things that are problematic with the world sometimes. And I think one of the solutions to me is really to think sometimes as like everything's alive and not forgetting that. And I think it's part of why I anthropomorphize those shapes. It's because I think as humans, we naturally have empathy for other humans. And I think like anthropomorphizing everything is just a way to to bring empathy into everything that is around us. And I think it applies, to art and to environment. And
when you say
anthropomorphize, I mean, for instance, the way that to me, like those sand mermaids are, so they're part fish, part sand, but they're also humans. Because to me, I don't see the difference there's no hierarchy between them and me. There's no hierarchy between me and another form of matter. And I think thinking in terms of that really helps me into the way I live, but also into the way I create, to also remember that when I work, and you know that because you work the clay, that like you always have to understand that the medium also has its own agenda, and its own, you have to listen to it.
Yeah. Did you want to say something about that, about like the quality of the medium and how it can actually inform, the message in your work or in general?
Oh yeah. I mean, working with clay is not easy. A lot of things can happen throughout the process that's gonna crack, break, and so on. So you have to have respect for it, and also respect the shape that it's about to take. So that's why I can start with an initial idea, and it won't necessarily drastic change because, I've been working with clay for almost a decade now, so I understand it really well. But, there's a respect, and it also feels like it's like I'm working with it. It's never me just like having this authority over it and telling it what it's going to be. No, it's like a teamwork, it's like, it's the energy that I want to put into it, and it's kind of like responding and shaping it together. And when there's like, it's not always perfect. I encounter obstacles sometimes, and then it's like going through it with it and, finding the solutions and all. I feel like clay holds so much wisdom. This is one of the ways that I feel like I learned so much about life, and I share about life too, and like wisdoms about life, because I feel like there is just, clay talks so much to you if you just listen, and it has its own language. it's not going to verbally tell you, but you will hear it when you work with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like the intuitive wisdom of Gaia, like Mother Earth, because it's like literally Earth you're working with.
Yeah,
it
exactly.
Holds the whole secrets we're trying. I mean, it seems like, from my understanding, there's like two ways to access this wisdom. It's like in the nature, clay, and all these mediums, and then within, in like the cosmic realm, which exists inside the intellect, inside the mind. There's, and having the insights that guide your hands to move with it, and then you see it, and then it guides you somewhere else inside your mind, and having this kind of relationship, I think is interesting. I'm very excited. I've never really done clay, but my next project, I have lots of ideas for clay. I'm excited to see like how, because the way you're describing it is very enticing to like actually.
Yeah, well, I feel like there's been, especially since the pandemic, there's been such a big rise in people wanting to work with clay.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people find it very meditative.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the clay can like absorb your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very art therapeutical tool to have.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Mm-hmm. What do you think people were reconnecting it during the pandemic?
Well, so I remember reading this in a book once, and it was talking about how, as humans, it's only in the, I don't know, maybe like past 100 years that we have this life of being in like closed houses and in a way disconnected from nature. But our true home in nature is the nature. It's being out. So I have a feeling that maybe reconnecting with clay is a way for us adapting as the society that it is now to reconnect with nature. Mm-hmm. And I think in a way it's very beautiful, and I feel like we should look at ways to push that even further than the clay, because it's important for us to reconnect with nature, because then we'll see how important it is, how vulnerable it is sometimes, and how everything is connected. I mean, when you go out on a walk in the forest, or you're somewhere in the world where it's just, plants, greenery, birds and fruits, when I go back to Colombia, it's like the world feels way bigger than when you're in your house or your apartment. And then it feels like way more insight comes through you when you're in those environments. But we live in a world where a lot of people have to work 9 to 5 to survive, and to survive and to have certain lifestyles that are kind of, society's kind of telling us these are the lifestyles that we should have. And so I feel like people are adapting in certain ways, and to be able to reconnect with nature, maybe in a way that they don't even recognize, by touching clay again.
And it does feel like, you guys, you work a lot with, the symbolism. Like there's lots of things that you can read literally, but you can also read metaphorically through impersonation. And I think that spirit often communicates to us through these natural symbols. Through a lot of like ancient deities, they have a lot of correspondence with animals, different body parts, in Hinduism. And to reconnect with that wisdom and understand how symbols that are present in nature are directly informing our unconscious mind and programming it. And this is connected with our feminine counterpart, the receptive, that I think has been like severed and like very damaged in the past 2,000 years. Maybe even before. And it's directly connected to our connection with nature, like concrete cities, buildings, things that don't have a energy. They don't communicate. You'll see the echo of your voice, but you're always going to feel the void coming back at you, instead of having you talk with nature and through your intuition, through your words, and then the wind picks it up, and then you get something from it. Then this insect comes and it evokes something in you, a memory, and then you start having this dynamic dialogue with your environment, which is a lot trickier to have, because like basically from my experience in the city, you have it, but through what's alive. So your friends, your family, but your nature, your own inner nature is connected with the outer nature, which we don't have access to in the cities. And for me, if I look at the bigger picture, it seems to be connected with the feminine. The feminine that's been suppressed is literally manifested in these concrete cities that nature is suppressed in, you know. I don't know. Do you want to talk about something about this, or you have something you would like to share about that?
Yes. I think maybe I'm going to do like another parallel, because you're talking about suppression of femininity. And I think it's something that really affects also our cities, just in the way our cities are designed, the way that we're not really thinking about nature, but we're thinking about what's convenient. Just those things like having male trees or things like that, that really naturally bring like a lot of problems, because allergies and
male trees.
Male trees. For instance, like they don't have a lot of like fruits, because it's like the maintenance is different, but then it brings other problems like allergies. And just the way our cities are designed, it's not made to connect with nature and connect with ourselves. And when you're in nature, you never feel alone. Loneliness, you can feel it like in an apartment where there's nothing that brings you back to nature in the shapes, in what's in there. But if you just sometimes take a walk to the park, it's going to heal a lot of things. So sometimes even when someone like feels sick or something, just taking a walk, go to nature.
So how do you do it when since you're in the city? Like, what's your practice to reconnect with that?
Well, it's not always easy, but we do have a lot of great parks for sure. And we shouldn't undermine that. And as well, I think sometimes it's okay to feel the need to just like get out of the city. But I also have my own ways to reconnect with nature, even in my studio. And just something, like you said, like just putting your hands into clay, it's already something, just the things that from nature that you decide to bring in your space, it does make a difference.
Even painting nature, for me, I feel like I'm in nature when I paint it.
Absolutely.
Kimberly, you had something you wanted to say?
I had something to say. I mean, to clarify the tree things, it's the reason why there's so much more pollen and allergy outbreaks is because the city prioritizes having male trees. And the thing is, you need to have a balance of both. When there's in nature, you have a balance of both. You have the female and the male tree. So the male tree will like exalt the pollen, and the female tree is supposed to absorb it. And that's how things are. But the reason why there's no female trees or not enough is because they bear fruits. And that means more work for the city. About never being alone in when you're in nature, I actually read in a book. I should know my references, but I read in a book. It was a chapter of feeling. It was a chapter about feeling alone, and how when you go out on a walk in a forest and you have trees, you're never truly alone, because these trees have been there for maybe over 100 years ago. Like, you're never alone because these beings are there, even if it's not in the shape of a human or an animal. Like, they're like our elders in a way, I think one of the ways that I reconnect with nature, clay helps a lot, but we have great parks in Montreal. But it is true that in the winter it's harder, unless you do some winter sports, which can be a bit pricey, not necessarily accessible for everyone. I think the idea was always to try to escape in the winter, but it does become a lot more challenging in the winter to be able to have this connection with nature and just feeling refreshed by it.
But in the same way, I think, like, from my own understanding, like the seasons, they are a natural biological rhythm of life that we humans, when we were more connected to it with the lunar cycles and the solar cycles, they would be there's nothing that is not meant to be this way. And in winter, you have less access to sun. Sun is like the outer world. Usually that's what it's connected metaphorically. It's what you're consciously aware when you're awake, like what the light hits and you can physically see and grasp. And in winter, there's less of this. Therefore, there's more of darkness and the moon archetype of the inner world. And naturally, we need to go through these months of introspection and disconnection from the outer world, even nature, and connect with our own kind of garden, like we have all the correspondence of nature within our own body, all the systems of nature, our organs and everything is designed this way. And I think winter has its role to play in this part of how humanity will actually evolve its consciousness if we follow the rhythms that are already showing us the answers.
Yeah. But you see, I would wish that we would live in a society that would follow these patterns.
Yeah.
Because it's really hard to demand the same level of productivity that you would in the summer be the same in the winter. And that makes it harder.
100%. And also for women, like the cycles of the moon, the lunar cycles, that is more like every 13, like there's 13 cycles per year. And nothing is adapted for that also in society, right? Like, it's all based on the solar calendar. And
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's the patriarchal society. It's really like on top of us all the time. But yeah, with our art, we can like slowly hint and plant the seeds in people's heads so that hopefully in the future there is a change.
So what is something in your work that is directly speaking about that you want to talk about the patriarchy and the things that need to change, that you could that you have reference in your work? I mean, I can put the picture also in there.
That I have reference of my work specifically.
It can be indirectly, but
maybe you want to answer this first.
Yeah, sure. I can.
I'll think about it.
Yeah, because I think it's intrinsic in your work for sure. If I can talk about in my work, I would say for sure, to me, it's central. And one of the things that make me the artist I am is this, just because, of course, I'm a Black woman. And really early on, I noticed that there wasn't space that was really carved for me in that world. Because, when we're talking about women, it's not said, but it's implied that it's about white women. And when we're talking about the history of slavery of Black people, for a long time, until very recently, like there was nothing written about Black women experience. And I think like a lot of people know about Black women stereotypes, but very few people I noticed know about the roots of those stereotypes. And to me, my work is I'm trying to bring that into the forefront so people can really understand and see those people in a different way.
That's so important. Like, I'm glad you're talking about that. Because like, if you always see like the top manifestation of these things, it's hard for you to go within yourself and unlodge the root of it.
Exactly.
So by pointing them out and putting them very straightforward in your face, then it's the dialogue with your inner self becomes more accessible to understand the roots of it.
Yes, exactly. And I think as artists, it's part of our job to kind of scratch the surface of what's visible, and allow people to see with us what's underneath and what really matters. Actually.
Oh, you have your answer?
Yeah, I thought about it. I think that in a way that I haven't really thought about this directly, just because I'm working with so many subjects in a way at the same time, is that when it comes to decolonizing our mind, that's basically one of the biggest goals I have with my art. And I am referencing a time period in colonization that's extremely violent and aggressive. And instead of taking the route of it being so heavy all the time, I'm introducing ways to heal softly, which in a way is kind of like it's not the way that we've been taught to heal,
Right.
you know, when we think about the patriarchy. And so, because these things are very heavy and it's generational trauma and it's lingering, but there's a way to kind of like approach this softly and, you know, progressively in order to smoothen out these cracks. I do think that I'm becoming a little bit more aware of this in my life in general, and it's going to be a subject that I am going to start bringing in more forward. And, you know, I'm going to start in a series that's about, it's like spiritual warriors that I'm going to be creating, that they're fighting the spiritual warfare, which is basically like these forces that are like pushing us against reconnecting from nature, pushing us against the interconnectedness and, you know, and love. And so, and I feel like that directly, which I hadn't thought about it before until more recently, is going to be linking to just a higher like social hierarchy that's been on us ever since we have been born, at least.
Yeah. It reminds me of like you see this directly manifested in prisons, and how like there are some new age, you know, prisons that have different tactics, but most of them, they're like punishment, harsh, like you do something wrong, you need to pay like very violently, isolation and this. And then there's these new prisons. I don't know if it was in Sweden or something, where it's like a woman that directs the place, and they're more free. They create communities within the prisoners. They create programs for them to feel loved and to feel appreciated, psychotherapy and all of the things. And the recidive, I don't remember what's the name in English, but the percentage of the prisoners that get out of prison that do the same crimes again, or any crimes at all, is, you know, like 50 or more % less in these types of prisons than in the ones that they're just punishing them physically, like at the warrior masculine energy. And this just goes to show that it's really the feminine aspect of life that is repressed. The mothers that have not had the tools to give the emotional, compassionate, nurturing qualities to their children. And then basically that's what a lot of people are seeking. They have to they're repolarized on the extreme masculine to try to make sense of life. But what they really all need is like a hug.
Yeah. But I do want to like point out that like, yes, that's all true. And recently I've been reading Bell Hooks. I've been reading her already, but I read a new book, and I really enjoyed the fact that she points out how like this, you know, this nurturing and compassionate thing, it's actually a learned behavior. It's just that it's more expected for women to learn this behavior, and it's not necessarily expected for men to do it, but it doesn't mean that men cannot, you know. It's just the way that we are all brought up. So all genders possess these energies.
Yeah.
And there's not like, it's not because of certain biologies that you cannot have these energies or you cannot learn these behaviors. And also, like bell hooks does point to the fact that there's this assumption that all women are nurturing, and that's not necessarily true, because to be able to nurture and have empathy and compassion, that's a learned behavior. And to assume that every woman has that is, you know, it erases the facts that like women do abuse as well, you know. It's beyond genders at this point.
100%. And that's why I like to study astrology, because you can have this kind of what you bring a point of like the nuances, and not to categorize like X, Y, and like that's it. And in a way, in astrology, you can see like your moon is your mother, and there's 12 places it can be. Same with the sun, your father. It can be in 12 different places, and then they can have relationships that are very intricate amongst themselves. So the point is we all have a moon and we all have a sun, which is basically the reflective qualities of the mind and the qualities of action and shining out wisdom from our inner world outwards. But the problem right now in society is that it's sun only. Like that's what's empowered when you're born in this society. Is like, no, you look outside, what's the structure? You try to fit in. It's not like, no, you go within and then you reflect the real sun, which is your soul, this real light, and then you bring it out. It's more like the outer sun that is. And you can see this in the masculine polarity as well in the chart of the people. So yeah, it is a important nuance that you're bringing, I think, because it helps people, I think, take responsibility regardless of your gender.
Yeah.
You have both and you can work on both and you should work on both. Like not be too passive and just like receive and accept everything and not just be like hyper materialistic in the outer world and just step on people's heads to get what you want. Do you have something you want to turn on that?
Yeah, to continue on that, maybe I can reference also bell hooks. To me, like one of the things that really stayed with me, it was this importance of love cannot coexist with neglect and abuse. And like you were talking about the example of prisons, this example, like it's about neglecting, making a hierarchy between who deserves to be cared for and who deserves to be neglected. And it's actually more work when we neglect some people and when we put those hierarchies. We pay for that later on. And I think it's one of the things that we're trying to reverse, this thing of like immediate solution in terms of instead of long-term thinking and how it's gonna pay back later and beneficiate like all of us in the end.
Yeah, and that is also a lesson in astrology of Saturn. I've been working with this energy because often we think about Saturn, which is like pain, going through the challenges, long-term vision to get long-term results, as very masculine. But in the Kabbalah, it's actually associated with the cosmic mother, the divine feminine, because it is a kind of a self-sacrificing quality. You're sacrificing immediate gratification, immediate, glory for myself, for something that will benefit everyone else also on the long term. If you can forget yourself a little bit, that is a Saturnian quality of self-sacrificing that most people are not willing to make. Maybe to kind of start concluding, I'm curious to know what is the things that are on your mind lately? What have you been processing in terms of your art, you're reflecting upon in your personal life that you would want to share?
I would say it relates a bit to that podcast because right now I'm really I'm continuing on this theme of water and mermaids, and I'm really working on stories of mermaids that they live into the deep sea, so they don't need light, and sometimes when you're in the dark, you start to see and feel things better, and you make space by not seeing. You make space for other senses to take over, and to me, it's really something that is related to how I live, and I do think like it helps the creation to be open to this uncertainty and this darkness, and I think it helps us in terms of the hard times that we live today, but also just into just being comfortable also with the uncertainty. And I think it all relates.
Yeah, in my own research, again, to bring it back to Saturn, Baina, the cosmic mother, this is the archetype. It's knowing that the answers that you're looking for exist in the deep ocean when you're like alone with yourself. Almost like in the ocean, it feels, because we're made of water, you can almost dissolve the materiality. Like your inner water, it merges with the collective water of the ocean, and this is where the best insights, not just for you, but for everyone else are. So I never heard this from the mermaid perspective, but that's very interesting, and it feels very aligned with also the truth that I'm trying to connect in my own practice. Did you want to share what's you're working on and what's?
Yeah. Well, I mentioned like the spiritual warriors that I was going to start making, but also I feel like I've been reflecting a lot on the women in my family. There's a lot of women in my family that have unfortunately been victims of abuse in in different shapes and forms. And it's kind of, I'm interested to kind of studying the patterns and why is that, and kind of like going a bit beyond like personal stories and just seeing the bigger picture and what actually allows and for all of this to happen. And I think I feel like I've had like such a big realization with reading. Well, I'm reading a book by Communion. It's called, by Bell Hooks, about the patriarchal society and how there's been ways that we've been kind of like trapped as women in sometimes, and a lot of times actually, it's a mental trap that we have, and it's many mental traps. So it's like the work of kind of like undoing these generational mental traps that have been imposed on us. And I feel like whenever I do that, directly or indirectly, I end up healing my lineage in a way.
Yeah, and because then your art will also testify of that inner change you made in yourself in a way. Yeah, that's beautiful.
And just speaking on the women in my family, I mean, there's so much tenacity and perseverance in all of us, and despite so many obstacles, like they really are a remarkable example of the strength that we have and the love that we have for our families and putting our families forward, but also going against these obstacles. Unfortunately, like not all, but like a lot of women in my family haven't been able to have relying male partners, and a lot of times these male partners are the obstacles. They're the ones that are bringing in difficultiness. And so but still it's never been something that's put them down in any shape or form. They've always were able to transcend beyond that. So,
and that's something that you're, I guess, definitely inspired by, and you're thinking about for your new work. Is that?
And also providing a sense of a form of healing towards it as well, because it does come with a lot of pain. Just basically like my subjects, just subjects about like the rupture between the indigenous ancestry that we have, that's due to colonization. It's still a subject that has a lot of very violent history, and it's kind of in a way the same thing. So it's again finding ways to heal, or just providing guidance or exampons on healing this softly.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Healing this softly is a good, maybe it's a good name for a show as well. Healing it softly. But yeah, I think that's interesting that I think that's how I think also, because I think you're Gemini rising. It's kind of like synthesizing type of mind, where you want to like not just base your research on your own, perspective, but also see how all the perspectives of people around are all connected, and having the bird's eye view of how everything is connected. And this, I connect because this is kind of what I'm doing with this podcast as well, having people that have a part of the vision. So to see like with all the people's minds, like what's the bigger vision, and therefore, helping us see then how we can make it better. And I think that's what you're describing is like by synthesizing this, you can almost see from bird's eye perspective where the root is of the problem. And then through your art, it kind of blossoms out, and then everyone can see the healing visually in an abstract way. I don't know if I explained it correctly. I don't want to.
No, yeah, definitely.
So, maybe to conclude, last question, and it's is there something you wish I had asked you or that's on your heart that you want to share as a last thing to the audience? The last question was pretty meaningful, but if there's a last thing before we end.
Maybe I do want to continue about what was just said, just to make like another connection to nature, because I think we often forget how we're, as you say, like we're all part of the same network. Whatever we do, we cannot extract ourselves from the others, from the collective. And by healing yourself and healing your family, you're healing others as well. And I'm just thinking, because you made some sculptures about also about plants. And I'm just thinking about like in the past years, we had a lot of conversations about how all the vegetables are connected in the planet. And I do think it's more than time that we talk more about how this connectiveness also includes us as humans, and how we can be aware of that to make better choices sometimes in the way we live and in the way we work. So to me, it really relates to that. And I think what I would say, like, about my work, like, there are so many levels, but one thing that really ties everything is empathy. So it's empathy with those characters, even if they are fictitious. To me, like, they exist and they tell us a story about real people. And so I do think if we have this empathy towards like the people and the environment and the mediums we work with, I think we always come up with better results, you know. It's not about control, it's about collaboration. Yeah.
And it's funny, as you're saying that, I have this painting that I'm seeing in the background with all these frogs and the women kind of, you know,
exactly,
conversation with these living beings.
Exactly. And so we don't know, like, if she's like reduced or the frog are human size, and it doesn't matter. So it's just like putting them at the same level, you know. And it's really just about them being able to connect equally.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Did you have a last thing you wanted to share?
I think I pretty much said everything.
Okay.
Yeah, or...
Yeah, that's fine. Maybe then you can leave people if they want to see your work. Do you have... I mean, the shows that I'm going to be publishing in a few months, so maybe more like how they can find news about your work and your shows.
Yeah, I'm pretty active on social media. My handle is Kim's Folk Art. And yeah, I have a website also, KimberlyOrjuela.com. And that's pretty much the places where I announce wherever I have shows. Right now, for this year, I don't have any more shows, but I will have 2 of them next year. So
cool. Yeah, so this will be linked to. And do you want to share your socials and how people can reach you if they have questions?
Well, I'm not as active on social media, but I'm mostly on Instagram. It's Marie-Danielle Duval. It's my name, so it's simple. Okay. And I still like give news updates about shows and what's coming up. Yeah.
And your website is the same thing?
My website is mdanielleduval.com.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much for this conversation.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for being part of this. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope this was interesting and valuable, as much as it was for me to get to know Kimberly and Marie-Danielle's minds. If you did like, don't forget to subscribe and like this video. It helps the channel grow. and it does a very big difference for views as well and the expansion. So don't forget to go apply to the grant. It's free, you have nothing to lose. And we have, if you go back in the videos that have been passed, there's 4 or 5 interviews with the jury members, so you can see how they approach visionary art. And yeah, I encourage everyone to go check that out as well. And yeah, buy a hoodie if you want to support the channel. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next week.